What did the weird kid in your school do that you'll never forget? Story 1. He was generally very weird and erratic. One day, he extracted a huge slimy booger out of his nose, turned around to me and a friend, and told us full of glee, "Guys, look!" Then he stuffed it back into his nose. One day, I asked him why he was so weird, and he told me with the straightest face, "The jester's cap affords one many liberties." So I don't know if he was just weird or maybe a secret genius. Maybe a bit of both. Story 2. This is going to sound ridiculous, but during my senior year of high school, someone took a huge, and I mean inhumanely huge, dump in one of the girls' bathroom toilets that was far too big to be flushed away. Some kid mentioned seeing it, and in no time, somehow the entire school was made aware and gathered around the bathroom trying to get a look at this monstrosity. Picture 50-plus high school kids skipping classes just to try to squeeze into a small women's room to stare in awe at an infamous dump. The crowd got so big and unruly that the administration finally caught on and banned people from that particular hallway for the rest of the day under threat of suspension. I'd like to believe that all of us were that weird kid on that day. The legendary tale of the colossal bathroom deposit. It's amazing how a single extraordinary dump can bring an entire high school together. Who knew that a gargantuan piece of art could unite students in a shared sense of awe and wonder? It's the stuff of teenage legends and bathroom folklore. Remember, kids, sometimes it takes a massive dump to remind us all that we're beautifully weird in our own special way. Story 3. So there was a guy at our school when I was a freshman that everyone called Wolfman, who was weird in all the bad ways. He claimed to have superpowers like teleportation, DBZ-like energy creation, and whatnot. All the girls said that he would just stare at them if they had a class with him. He hung around us freshmen and did his best to flirt with the girls. For example, of his flirting, he once told a girl that while astral projecting, he saw her face on Jupiter. Needless to say, girls stayed away from him. He graduated though, and his brother started at the school. Now, Wolfman wasn't a tall guy by any stretch of the imagination, maybe 5 feet at most, but his brother was a good foot shorter than him. He looked like he belonged in 3rd grade. He never got any taller. And it didn't help that he always wore a child's Goosebumps jacket, which made people start calling him Goosebumps. He was even more convinced of his power than his brother, but at least he was less creepy. But that's all he had going for him. One memorable day, I was in math class, and he started shaking violently. People ignored him, so he started flapping his arms around. Wondering if this was an actual seizure, the girl next to him put her hand on him and asked if he's okay. He growled back, "Take your hand off me. This power is too much to contain." She started yelling at him for faking a seizure, and he went back to normal death stare, forward grumbling about his powers. Story 4. There was this huge guy, tall and wide, in our classes. To support his impressive body, he ate a lot. He'd bring an entire roll of cookies, like 20 plus, and then stack them on one side of his desk. Then he would take a bite out of cookie number 1 and put it on the other side of the desk. Then he would take one bite out of the next cookie and place that one on top of cookie number 1. He'd go through the whole stack until all cookies were partially eaten and in a neat stack on the other side of the desk. Then he would do it again. Take one bite of the top cookie and place that in the original side of the desk, bite the next cookie, etc., etc. After maybe 15 minutes of biting and stacking, the whole lot was gone. Now, we weren't even supposed to eat in class, but he always got away with it somehow. Story 5. The weird kid in our school was part of our friend group, so 15 plus years later, we still gave him crap about it. Now, during assembly one afternoon, a few weeks after the ball or prom, he went up on stage while our entire year was filling into the auditorium and taking our seats. He was part of the AV club, surprise, so his responsibility was making sure that the microphones worked so nobody questioned why he was up there tinkering with the mic. Anyway, 90% of our year has come in at this point when he starts singing Jumper by Third Eye Blind over a karaoke version of the song he found on LimeWire, and he's changed the "my friend" part of the chorus to the name of the girl he wants to ask out to prom. He gets about halfway through the song before one of the teachers realizes it isn't a joke and then gets up on stage to drag him out. Everyone is just sitting there going, "What the hell?" And half the kids don't know the song, and the other half is wondering why he chose it to ask somebody out. Turns out the girl he was asking wasn't even in the auditorium yet, so didn't hear his little number. He got detention for a week for being disruptive, but since then, we just call him Jumper as a joke. And then it stuck. and I don't think anyone in our friends group has used his name since. Even during his wedding, you could tell who he went to school with since they asked him where Jumper was or Big J. That's quite the memorable story. It sounds like your friend really went all out in his attempt to ask that girl to prom. Thinking a personalized version of Jumper on stage during assembly, that takes some serious courage. Although it didn't quite go as planned, I guess, and at least he gave everyone a moment of confusion and entertainment. And it's even funnier that the nickname Jumper stuck with him all these years. I mean, it's a pretty harmless nickname to say the least. It just goes to show that some moments from high school just never really leave us. I guess you could say that he jumped into the spotlight in a rather unique way. Story 6. I remember once in high school, we were on a school camp which included some low-level spelunking. About 60 of us had to squeeze into a single file line on our hands and knees through a narrow part of the cave, which was about 100 meters long. There was a small section about halfway along, which opened up to allow 2 people to sit shoulder to shoulder. Anyway, a weird kid got to this section and decided he really needed to poop. Not sure what he had been eating, but it was a runny one. He was at the front of the column, so we all had the pleasure of crawling through the mess he made, because we'd come too far to turn back. Combine that with poor lighting and poor ventilation, and we had a real mess on our hands. Story 7. There was this really mentally messed up kid I could probably write a book about. He went through a phase where he was obsessed with JFK, printed out pictures of him and taped them to everything, his binder, truck, locker, etc. I don't know what happened, but later that year, all those pictures changed to pictures of Hitler. He referred to them as the time that the devil overtook him with evil. He did all this same crap with William Shatner and a teacher at our school. But the bizarre satanic Hitler obsession takes the cake. Story 8. At an all-school assembly during my freshman year, a motivational speaker posed an easy rhetorical question to the crowd, and the weird kid in my grade unnecessarily shouted out the answer, to every bored person's sudden delight. For some reason, trying to maintain his authority, the speaker asked our weird kid, "What's your name, son?" Without pause, the weird kid stood up from his chair and loudly proclaimed, "My name is Booger." This announcement was met with raucous applause and laughter from the entire student body. It was gloriously random and weird. From then on, the weird kid was known only as Booger in our small town, and it fit him better than Sean, and he really owned that name until graduation. Story 9. This was at university, which makes this even weirder. I studied geology, so we went on a lot of field trips, and one time we went to Spain, and I noticed this rather strange girl had a tally chart in the back of her notebook. Now, this girl was odd. She wore all black clothes that were clearly not washed very well. She had bright ginger hair and would wear huge spiky plastic jewelry that was usually bright orange, like big spiky plastic necklaces or bracelets. She would pick her nose aggressively in class. Anyway, I asked some of the other girls if they knew what the tally in her notebook was about, and they said that she was counting the amount of times that she had successfully taken a pee while standing up. I don't know about you, but I found this fascinating. I started casually following her one day on our field trip in Spain, and sure enough, she would find somewhere she thought was discreet. It wasn't discreet enough because I saw everything, and she would take her pants fully off and then take a mean pee standing up. The whole time, with a demonic smile on her face. Crap was scary. Then she puts her pants back on, gets out her notebook, and adds another tally mark, then saunters off into the Spanish wilderness to do more geology. It was almost as disgusting as it was mesmerizing. So one day, we had a day off to relax and do what we wanted, so everyone agreed that we could go to Madrid for the day. So we all got on a big coach and set off. The drive is like 2 hours. Now 30 minutes in, she starts mumbling to herself about needing the toilet. Everyone around her going quiet as she becomes more agitated. Eventually, she jumped up and waddled down the aisle to ask the driver to stop. After a bit of arguing and Spanish shouting from the driver, we pull over. The bus doors open, she walks back to the aisle and gets off using the door halfway down the bus. She takes about 3 steps away from the door and then starts digging a hole like a badger in heat. Now at this point, I think deep down I knew what was going to happen. She's about to take a massive pee right there in front of everyone. As the ultimate win for her classmates she clearly hated. But boy, was I wrong. She finished digging her hole. It was quite impressive given how dry the ground was, and she turned herself around away from the bus, dropped her trousers, and took a squat over the hole. What is this? I thought. Maybe she's too shy to stand up and pee. Nope. Out comes the most horrific crap from her pasty white butthole. like gallons of it. I've never seen so much. The hole that she dug, while impressive, was not sufficient for the brown mass that spewed forth. She finished, wiped her butt with a small piece of tissue that she had in her pocket, and got back on the bus, with the same maniacal grin I saw her have with the wild pea. Everyone was silent, our professors just staring at each other, clearly thinking, what the heck just happened, Jim? Did that girl seriously just unleash a turd tsunami in front of 40 people? The rest of the journey was just silence. I think that we were all just in shock. We get to Madrid and everyone slowly gets off the bus. The girl starts saying again that she needs the toilet and everyone turns to look at her. Her bright orange trousers are soaking wet like she'd been swimming. One of the other students said, Jesus, what the hell happened? And casually as anything, she turns to him and says, the bus ride was too long. I peed myself a few times. At this point, I'm losing my mind. Like, what the hell, lady? You stopped the bus so that you could decimate the landscape and you couldn't have peed at the same time? You might as well. I mean, everyone saw your massive crap. I don't think a quick pee would have bothered anyone, seriously. Anyway, two girls took pity on her and carted her off to a public toilet. And the rest of us went on to a few museums and had a great day. But it was hard to enjoy it, to be quite honest, because Madrid's Natural History Museum didn't have the same jovial atmosphere after watching a grown woman crap and pee herself. That's quite the unforgettable field trip. I guess you could say she really left her mark, quite literally, on that excursion. Like, who needs geological formations when you can witness a one-woman spectacle of bodily functions? I must admit, her dedication to keeping a tally of her unique achievements is both perplexing and strangely impressive. It's a shame her unconventional talents overshadowed the wonders of Madrid's Natural History Museum. But hey, at least she provided a captivating case study for your geological adventures, right? Now here's to hoping that your future field trips are filled with fewer surprises of the bodily kind and more rocks that don't require a tissue for examination. Story 10. All right, so this one kid got dared to put a protractor in his mouth and did it curved side first, so naturally it then got stuck. And he got sent out of the class and had to go to the school office. The same kid got dared to shoot a staple gun at himself, so he went ahead and staple gunned his arm and had to be taken to the A&E to get stitches. There were loads of other things that he did that I can't remember now, but it got to the point that if someone did something really stupid or dangerous, kids in our year began to refer to them as pulling a Hudson after him. Story 11. The year is 2009. It's my very first day of public school after being homeschooled for 10 years. I'm starting 10th grade, and I wander my way back into the cafeteria and sit at a table with my twin brother, who's virtually the only person that I know. Now at this point, I assume that I am indeed the weird kid. Suddenly, Naruto Nate, named for the way that he did the arms back sprint, and his girlfriend, Kitty Kilbert, cat girl, tail, ears, hissing, the whole works, held hands and jumped from the second floor library balcony all the way down onto a table in the cafeteria. They crashed straight through a folding table, which caused everyone's food to be flung in towards the center. The force of the kids sent food flying far enough that it hit other tables, which initiated a real-life food fight. I will never forget the feeling I had right there. I thought, oh my God, public school is just like the movies. Yes! Story 12. My high school was filled with messed up things. I remember one girl's older brother took himself out sometime after their mom passed, and then a weird kid straight up told her that she may as well have killed herself too. On social media, he didn't delete it, got suspended, then expelled, then charged, and then sent to another school. I think the ones for kids with mental problems. I remember eventually seeing him in college and nothing has changed. He said that the school just became a super easy A, and he had enough time to kind of mess around. Anyways, I'm pretty sure that he's under the FBI's eye for some weird stuff. No one in our group that knows him really knows if he would have done it. Dude's a troll. Story 13. I was the weird kid and I read books and watch sci-fi and Britcoms on Saturday night on PBS. And once wore a 70s era maroon leisure suit that I found tucked into the back of my stepdad's closet to school because I could. I also freaked the F out on my teacher in home ec because we did that assignment where you have to carry around a doll or a bag of flour or an egg for a couple of weeks because you're learning what it's like to be a parent. And I flat out refused to name a father on the baby's birth certificate. And this was after my teacher had said, you can't name your baby that. And then I disagreed. I named him Elvis after having a long private discussion with myself over whether I wanted a boy or a girl. And if I had a girl, if I should name her Evita Durete de Peron, my last name, and I ended up picking Elvis, ultimately because it actually did fit on the name goes here space on the fake birth certificate. I am not Argentinian, but I do love Broadway musicals, and Evita has always been one of my favorites. Ah, yes, the unconventional and unapologetically unique. Embracing your inner weirdness and unleashing your creativity in the most unexpected ways. From your eclectic taste in books and sci-fi to your daring fashion choices, you've certainly carved your own path. Let's not forget your rebellious spirit in home ec class, challenging the norms of baby naming with your little Elvis. Now, who needs a traditional birth certificate when you can rock the world with a touch of musical flair? This person should just keep marching to the beat of their own Broadway show tune, my friend. The world needs more colorful characters like you to keep us entertained. Story 14. This is kind of traumatic to me, so bear with me. She brought a kitten to school in a strawberry container. You know those thin plastic 4x4 containers with the holes? Yeah, that. She took me to the bathroom stall and pulled out this kitten out of her backpack and wrapped it in a jacket and in a container. It was meowing. I was shocked. She said, don't tell because her grandma would beat her. So I'm like in 3rd grade and I have a moral conundrum that an 8-year-old shouldn't save a kitten and get my friend beat, or let her take the kitten and let her get beat anyway. So I told on her. I couldn't bear to stand that kitten in there even at that age. Now, looking back with more understanding, I don't remember if it survived. I really hope it didn't die of dehydration or suffocation or something. It looked really young, definitely 4 or 5 weeks old. So no milk and that environment, horrifying. Story 15. Not particularly the weird kids, but they were a little crazy. One day in physics class, they were playing with a stapler and one of them was trying to prove how strong he was by allowing the other one to put staples into his arm. He'd take them back out and then flick them away like nothing. My teacher wasn't even paying attention. And then next thing he knew, the guy with the staple jumped up and pushed a staple right into the head of the other guy. Everyone in the class saw it. The guy with the stapler laughed because he thought it was a joke. And safe to say that the other guy, clearly in pain, didn't feel the same and began chasing the other guy around the class, and they had a big fight in the corridor. Now, the teacher finally stepped in, and the guy with the staple in his head ended up punching the lockers in frustration, which then made his hands all bruised and bleeding. He was then taken to the hospital to get the staple removed, and we didn't hear much about it from then on. Yeah, talk about taking stapler fights to a whole new level. It seems like those guys who determined to turn physics class into a real-life action movie. Who needs superhero movies when you can have students proving their strength by turning each other into human bulletin boards? I can't help but wonder if they were aiming for the title of, most hardcore physics experiment. On the bright side, at least they provided the class with a dramatic demonstration of Newton's laws in action. Because just a friendly reminder here, when it comes to physics, let's stick to equations and experiments that won't leave anyone feeling like a human pincushion. Safety first, folks. In the comments, anybody have their own story of just that crazy weird kid? And what did they do?